Please welcome Amazon Web Services VP, AI Products, Matt Wood.
Good morning, everybody. It's good to see you all here, and thank you so much for joining us at our very first LA Summit for AWS. Myself and the team could not be more excited to spend the day with you learning about generative AI, cloud computing, analytics, building, and everything in between. It's an incredibly exciting day, so welcome. This always seems to get left to the end, so I also want to thank you so much for your time. You have a million emails in your inboxes. You could have been anywhere else in the world, but you're here with us, and myself and the team really, really appreciate it, so thank you. So today, I'm going to talk a little bit, actually quite a lot, about generative AI. What else is there to talk about? Generative AI represents probably the biggest technical shift in how we're going to interact with data and information and each other since the advent of the very, very earliest internet. And organizations that invested in the early internet, like Amazon.com and many, many others, have gone on to experience pretty tremendous growth in the intervening 30 years. And it's my expectation that customers and organizations that are investing in generative AI today are going to experience multiple Amazons of growth in the next 30 years going forwards. So it's an incredibly exciting time. And I honestly, having spent hours with hundreds of customers over the past 24 months, have not seen this level of excitement and investment and momentum and energy from customers from every industry, probably since the advent of the very, very early days with AWS itself. Today, the vast majority of machine learning and generative AI workloads are running on AWS. And many customers are building on the foundations for their previous work around deep learning and building on those foundations to be successful with generative AI. More workloads for machine learning run on AWS than on any other cloud. And we have hundreds of thousands of customers using AI and machine learning today on AWS, and over 10,000 using our Bedrock service specifically focused on making it easy to build generative AI. Over 96% of all AI and ML unicorns, those are startups valued at over $1 billion, today are running on AWS. There is a ferocious amount of innovation happening in the startup industry, fueled by this discovery of generative AI. And in addition to that, 90% of the 2024 Forbes AI 50 also run on AWS. So there's an incredible amount of momentum building both in startups, but actually across organizations in every sector, in every industry, private and public, large and small, that are using generative AI to be able to drive digital transformation and completely reinvent their customer experiences and their internal business processes. It is a delight to be able to spend time with you all, talk a little bit about what we've seen and the success we've seen from customers so far. Customers like Airtable, who have built assistants inside their Airtable software to make it easier to be able to understand and build net new applications using your data. Startups like Perplexity, who are completely reinventing search and challenging the big behemoths of search very effectively, in my opinion. Companies like Slack, who are using generative AI to better understand and help communicate between each other. And Thomson Reuters, that are consistently adding additional information to their vast resources of knowledge to make it easier to use and more useful for everybody. But one really interesting trend is that over the past 18 months, we've seen a group of companies emerge that are moving slightly faster than the average. The average is very deliberate, very, very fast moving, but there's a group of companies that are actually moving faster than that. And somewhat counterintuitively, it's actually the enterprises in regulated industries. Regulated industries like financial services and insurance, healthcare, life sciences, and manufacturing. It has been really remarkable to see these organizations who, through compliance with their regulatory requirements over the years, have had to build in all of the pieces of data strategy necessary to be successful with generative AI. They've already worked on governance. They've already worked on data privacy and data quality. And as a result, the small incremental investment required to be successful with generative AI makes it a very, very positive investment for those organizations. And so it's remarkable to see, and I probably wouldn't have guessed it 24 months ago, that the regulated industries are all in and moving very, very quickly across the New York Stock Exchange, financial services companies like Intuit, companies like Merck and Pfizer in life sciences, and the District of Columbia Department of Health in the public sector, who are really investing and moving quickly in this space. Very, very enthralling. So why are customers in all of these different industries, regulated, traditional software companies, startups, public, private sector, why are they choosing AWS? Well, it comes down to just a few factors, but they're all really big ones. The first is that by far, AWS offers the broadest set of capabilities for building and being successful with artificial intelligence. We provide both the broadest set of models, and we'll talk more about why that's important later on, in addition to the best and most powerful models from our partners and friends at Anthropic with their Claude 3 Opus model. In addition to that, we provide the best automation for developers with Q, which we'll talk about later on, don't worry, which allows developers to be able to quickly and easily complete very complicated tasks using completely autonomous agents. Q has the best performing autonomous agents for developers. And so no matter how you slice and dice your use cases, no matter how you slice and dice the technology, AWS has by far the strongest offering of anyone for generative AI success. Now, this whole industry, this whole technology is moving incredibly quickly. And over time, technology capability tends to follow an S-curve. Starts off with some small incremental improvements, you hit the inflection point, you see tremendous increase in capability, and then over time it starts to tail off, and what you've got is pretty much what you're left with only incremental improvements after that. This is such a fast-moving area that I think that most people, probably if we surveyed everyone in this room, most people would probably agree that we're somewhere in the middle of that S-curve. That high gradient part where there are new models and technologies appearing virtually every single day. But for my money, I don't think we've hit the hockey stick inflection point yet. I think we're all the way over there on the bottom left-hand side. And in spite of all the success that we've seen, all the energy and momentum, we are just at the very earliest days of this technology, the very early stage of the transformation that many organizations and products and people are going to see through the use of generative AI. So it's still very, very early, and there are new models, new technologies, new techniques from industry and academia appearing almost every day. I am sure that by the time we're finished here in this room today, there will be a new model or a new technique that has been published that is worthy of our attention. But that said, big reason that customers are choosing AWS is because we have a proven track record of delivering quickly in times of very rapid change. And a good example of that is that just since early 2023, we have launched 326 new AI and machine learning capabilities into general availability. This is a remarkable pace of change, and AWS is the only provider that is able to keep up with it because of how we operate and our consistent delivery at speed. In fact, if I were to throw a little shade, we've actually launched over twice as many new capabilities since 2023 into general availability than all of the other cloud providers combined. Now, I don't know who these other, the bottom two are here. It's a little opaque to me, but so far we're doing pretty well. And this pace is really important, disproportionately important in these early stages of technology change when you need to be able to keep up with all the changes that are happening. So, it's my belief that generative AI, in time, will be woven into all of our applications. All of our processes, all of our use cases will feature generative AI in some way. And in the fullness of time, it'll just become vanilla. It'll just become the new normal. It'll be there in absolutely everything that we do. But we're not quite there yet. And in the time between now and getting there, I think it's really important to be able to get on the same page together, to explore this topic together, to learn from each other what works and what doesn't work. And so whilst we have an extraordinary amount of innovation happening across AWS related to compute and infrastructure and networking and analytics and developer tools, today and for the foreseeable future, I suspect we're going to need to lean in on generative AI and learn together, and that is what we're going to start doing today. In periods of really discontinuous flux, many customers ask, well, where should I focus? There's so much change. There's so much new capability. Where should I spend my time? And from my perspective, in periods of discontinuous flux, the only place to focus is on what is not going to change. And so whilst generative AI is something of a force of nature, those forces of nature are still beholden to a set of physical, immutable rules. So what I thought I would do today, based on what we've seen so far across all this customer use, is to be able to start to run through some of the patterns of these immutable rules that we're seeing for generative AI, in the hope that we can all focus on them together and start to build even more capability going forwards. So the first law that we've noticed, the immutable law of generative AI, is that the foundation for AI is in the cloud. And this is not surprising. The training requirements required to train new foundational models, these are very, very large models which collect petabytes, exabytes of data, and use that data to be able to extract patterns, to be able to generate new ones. Almost all of that today is happening in the cloud. And many of the largest model providers are training on AWS and migrating their mission-critical workloads there as quickly as possible. Folks like Anthropic, Mistral AI, the community of supporters and enthusiasts at Hugging Face, along with different modalities of models like those from Stability AI, and very, very large models like the ones that you see from Falcon, which is one of the largest models that's ever been trained. All of this is happening on AWS. Because to be successful in training foundation models, you need to be able to build on a foundation of infrastructure innovation. And all of this success, all of these large language models that we have today, and all of the ones that are going to be created in the future are going to be built up in the cloud and on AWS. And the reason for that is we already have everything that you need. We have the latest generation of NVIDIA GPUs. We allow you to be able to organize those GPUs in very, very large clusters, tens of thousands of GPUs at the time. We help you manage the capacity of those clusters and those GPUs as if it was a hotel reservation, so you can book ahead of time and get the capacity that you need. We have not only the compute, but in order to be able to train these models, you need to be able to throw lots of data at them. So you need the right subsystems in terms of storage and networking speed in order to be able to deliver the data to them at a rate in which they can consume them. And you need to be able to wrap all of that into an environment which is secure by design, which is what we've delivered with the Nitro system. So we have a very long-running relationship, partnership with NVIDIA. I think my first meeting with NVIDIA was something like 13 years ago. We've been the first cloud provider to make NVIDIA GPUs every generation available to our customers. We're going to continue to do that with the new NVIDIA Blackwell platform, which is coming soon. And across all of the instances that we have for machine learning training and inference, they're H100s on P5, or just being able to use them for graphics and inference with G6s and G5 families. All of this is underpinned with the right set of security controls from Nitro, which allows you to be able to create enclaves around both your training data and your model weights, such as we can't inspect them, and other people inside your organization can't inspect them. So those foundations remain secure because of the abstractions that we've added through the Nitro system. In addition to that, we have all the storage systems that I was mentioning. In addition to that, we allow customers the choice of how to manage these very, very large training clusters using EKS or ECS, using embarrassingly parallel systems with AWS Batch, or building tightly coupled systems with Parallel Cluster. And of course, we support all of the most common open source libraries for building and developing and programming the algorithms which actually train these remarkable models. In fact, our relationship with NVIDIA goes so deep that NVIDIA themselves run their internal R&D, all the model building, all their simulation work, all their robotics work, on Project Ceiba, which is an AWS-built AI supercomputer specifically designed for NVIDIA's internal R&D needs. This thing is a beast. 414 exaflops of compute. It's just over 20,000 GB200s with the next generation of EFA networking, which allows NVIDIA to be able to innovate incredibly quickly on top of the chips that they themselves design. It's a very encouraging part of our partnership. But of course, one of the foundations of infrastructure, particularly in the cloud, is that it offers choice as to when you want to be able to match your use case to a specific technology. And in this case, that comes down to matching your use case with a specific set of chips. And in addition to our relationship with GPU providers and other accelerators, AWS has developed our own set of accelerators specifically for infrastructure for machine learning training and inference. And we call these Trainium and Inferentia. And they're designed to offer the lowest and best price performance of training and inference anywhere on AWS. In fact, Trainium offers about a 50% reduction in training costs. Inferentia offers a 40% reduction in inference costs. And so these are by far the best ways to deliver at the sort of scale that organizations need to deliver these very, very large frontier foundation models. This is why companies like Anthropic and Mistral are adopting Trainium for their mission-critical training workloads. Now, it's not just the improvement in price performance, but these chips are also far more power efficient than others. And so, for example, generation over generation, Trainium 2 compared to Trainium 1 offers twice the power efficiency for model training. And of course, next to all of this innovation in the infrastructure, customers are using Amazon SageMaker to continually innovate using foundation models. And we've been investing time and again over the past nearly decade now to make SageMaker the de facto standard inside most organizations for machine learning modeling and machine learning workloads. And we're going to continue to invest there so you can take advantage of all of the infrastructure that we're providing under the hood and be able to deploy it in ways which are easier, faster, and cheaper when training your own models, which over time, the vast majority of this audience is going to end up doing in some way, shape, or form, even though you're not going to be training these foundation models from scratch. So that's the first law. The second law is that inside your organizations, immutably, you want to start with pervasive and efficient experimentation with generative AI. What we saw inside the company at Amazon was that as we started to make Bedrock available to more and more of our internal teams, we found that those teams had an insane amount of curiosity about how to employ and understand this technology. And they wanted to be able to start to prototype ideas. They wanted to be able to experiment very, very quickly. They wanted to build intuition about what was easy, what was hard, what worked well, what didn't work well, what the pitfalls were, and how to solve some of those pitfalls. And that pervasive and efficient experimentation is one of the single most accelerating factors for your organization. Unleashing your builders to be able to start learning and experimenting with this technology. I'm not talking about moving so quickly that you move to production too soon and make some mistakes, but unleashing the creativity of your builders is a prerequisite to being successful with generative AI. I promise you, your builders have hundreds of ideas inside your organization, and you really want to be able to harness those ideas, harness those shower cycles, the type of thinking that developers do in the shower in the morning, where they're constantly thinking new ways to improve the products and the business. You want to be able to unleash that creativity by making Bedrock available in every single organization and every single team. You may feel a tendency to try and lock it down, to try and restrict it. But the more broad and more pervasive you can make this technology, the more you will experiment, the more you will learn, and the faster you will be able to harness the improvements. So the way we do this internally, and the way most customers are doing it on AWS today, tens of thousands of them, is using Amazon Bedrock, which is by far the fastest and easiest way to build and scale generative AI applications on large language models and other foundation models. Bedrock allows you to access multiple large language models, models with different modalities, multimodal models, and to be able to start to prototype and experiment very quickly, and then take those experiments, the ones that you have conviction around, the ones that you've got use cases for, the ones that meet your cost needs, and to be able to start to take them into production securely, safely, and at the right pace for your organization. It's a remarkable service, one of the fastest growing services we've ever built. And one of the biggest use cases for early experimentation is through Amazon Bedrock Studio. Amazon Bedrock Studio allows you to, outside of the AWS console, very quickly start to build pretty complicated generative AI applications. Could be document management systems, could be assistants, could be more advanced reasoning, analysis, forecasting, whatever it might be. You can build all of that directly inside Bedrock Studio. Bedrock Studio adheres to your existing governance rules, and so it knows who you are. You log in through your standard SSO. You can start using that data to be able to build applications. And when your engineers have hit on something that they're excited about, they can share those experiences, and they can share those products, and they can share those applications with others internally, and they can start to get a sense of how they're working. They can get feedback from those end users, all inside the Bedrock Studio. So this is by far the best way that we know to be able to build pervasive and efficient utility of generative AI inside your organization, and it's available in Bedrock today. The third law is that you really need to be able to mix and match models to your mission. I've spoken to some customers who have very generously shared that they have talked to all of their teams internally. They've done a bottoms-up look at the type of applications or products they want to build with generative AI, and they've amassed literally hundreds of ideas. One company sent me a spreadsheet with 600 rows containing all of their ideas for generative AI. It was really remarkable. And this follows in virtually every company of any size and every industry. The utility of generative AI is sufficiently broad that you're going to find lots of different use cases, dozens, maybe even hundreds, maybe thousands inside your organization. And a diverse set of use cases cannot be met with a small subset of models. It requires a diverse set of models such as you can match the best use case for the models with the best models and lean into their advantage. There is no one model to rule them all. And in fact, if you start to use a small set of models, you actually end up trying to use something which looks a lot like a Swiss Army knife. And a Swiss Army knife is great in a pinch. If you really don't have any other options, Swiss Army knife has a lot of utility. But if a contractor turned up at your house with just a Swiss Army knife, I think you'd be pretty disappointed with their level of skill, and you'd be probably disappointed with their level of work as well. Instead, by providing a broad set of models and allowing customers to be able to mix and match, we let customers move from having to make do with a Swiss Army knife to being able to find the perfect tool for their use case. And that perfection, that perfect fit, opens up all sorts of opportunities in terms of driving up capability and driving down cost. So it's a really critical part of using generative AI today, and it will be going forwards. And all of these remarkable models, they all have a slightly different set of use cases that they're great at. And ideally, you want to be able to lean into the things that they are great at. So some models are really good at summarization, others are really good at analysis or reasoning, code interpretation. Still others have a variable different set of operational characteristics. So some are really, really fast and low latency. Some offer very, very low cost, and others are just very, very, very intelligent. And for each different use case, you want to be able to find and lean into the advantage of the model because you'll be able to build more capable systems in isolation and in aggregate as a result. And this is what informed and inspired the design of Bedrock, which is very different from how other folks are approaching it. So today, we provide the broadest selection of models inside Bedrock. We have models from AI21 Labs. We have models from Amazon that we build ourselves. We have models that we make available through our partnership with Anthropic. We have models that are great for enterprise use cases from Cohere. We work with Meta on their open weights models, Llama 2 and Llama 3. We work with the French startup Mistral AI on their both open weights models and their proprietary models. In fact, just within the next week, we're going to make the new Mistral Small available on Bedrock, and with Stability AI on image generation models. And each of these use cases and each of these models match in slightly different ways. So Claude 3 Opus, currently the best king of the hill in terms of analysis and reasoning capabilities, that's really great if you want to be able to create a strategy or understand complex information. Mistral Large is incredibly capable, but at a relatively low cost. The Amazon Titan image generator is a remarkable photorealistic image generation tool, which includes watermarking capabilities. And we also have Titan Text Premier, another Titan model from Amazon, which is currently the best performing model for building long-term planning and agent systems. So as you start to lean into the advantages of these models, you'll be able to build very cost-efficient systems which meet your latency, cost, and capability models. And that selection is going to continue to be important today, for the foreseeable future, and going forwards. Now, it's insufficient just to be able to give you access to these models, because once you've got them, how do you pick the right one? It's a very reasonable question. So we also make available a model evaluation capability inside Bedrock. Using Bedrock Model Evaluation, you can just pre-select a set of prompts for your model. You can use pre-existing prompts, you can create your own, and you can just select the models that you want to run against, and Bedrock will automatically start to look at common metrics and evaluation capabilities of each of the models that you've selected. So you can look at accuracy and robustness and toxicity scores, those sorts of things. And in addition to automated evaluation, Bedrock also enables both objective and subjective human evaluation. So this is private to your organization, but what you can do is you can start to define custom metrics based on your own information. And you can ask Bedrock and say, hey, I've got this group of users inside my company, they're experts, I want them to start to help evaluate the capabilities that we're building. And this allows you to evaluate the objective and the subjective view on accuracy, or friendliness, or harmfulness. And it allows you to build responsible systems that meet the ethical guidelines of your own organizations much more quickly and much more easily than ever before. Now, in addition to selecting the right model in an isolated use case, the superpower of generative AI is to be able to use more than one model at once. And by combining models, you don't get an additive increase in capability. It's actually a multiplier in capability. Combining models is like a compounding effect. It's like compound interest on your bank account. It's a miracle of modern science. And that's really borne out because when we look at the data, the majority of customers are actually using more than one model in Bedrock today. They're taking advantage of not just leaning into the advantage of an individual model, but combining them to create much more capable models that are greater than the sum of their parts. So it's a very exciting time. And all of these capabilities and model choice are really being borne out by customers who are maybe got started earlier with other providers and are starting to move to Amazon and AWS just as quickly as possible. So Hoodstats here gave us a great quote when we were talking to them. They said that switching to Amazon Bedrock really changed the game for us. Unlike with OpenAI, we get this incredible flexibility and scalability. It lets us tweak settings, experiment with various models, and tailor everything to our specific needs and data. So it's a really remarkable proof point, I think, as to the strategy that we put in place and the value that customers are going to find against it. So the next law, law number 4, is that consistency, coherency, and control of these foundation models is delivered through data. You can think of these foundation models as you take them off the shelf, kind of like an oscillating, unfocused jet engine. They've got a lot of power, they've got a lot of capability, but it's really, really unfocused. They get really distracted really quickly. And so what customers almost always need to be able to do is to be able to add constraints and add additional shrouds of controls around that engine, such as they can focus it on very, very specific tasks. And so you can think of the models as being very general, but the best way to deploy that generality, counterintuitively, is to be able to deploy it against very specific tasks. And to do that, you need to be able to add your own data to be able to ground the models, provide context to the models, make them less distracted, and control them in ways that will drive up your accuracy. Now, in order to be able to do all of that, it is a prerequisite. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. The Bedrock meets nothing more and nothing less than our customers' expectations for data security and privacy. And so with Bedrock, none of your data is used to train the underlying models. Unfortunately, I've spoken to CIOs as recently as maybe a couple weeks ago, and those CIOs have had to ban the use of alternative systems inside their organization because they've seen their own data exfiltrated into the underlying models. That just does not happen. It is unacceptable, and it does not happen on Bedrock. All your data is encrypted in transit and at rest, and the data used for any customization is securely transferred through your existing networking on VPC. And we have support for lots of different compliance standards like GDPR, SOC, ISO, CSA, and more. So our approach here is just very different from some other providers. And while some customers maybe come to generative AI with a schism in their mind, that in order to be successful with generative AI, they have to make some negative trade-off as it pertains to the security and confidentiality and privacy of their data, that just is not true on AWS. We've gone a step further and actually built governance controls directly into Bedrock. And so if you're already using Amazon Data Zone, you can bring those same data perimeters and those same governance controls and apply them directly to the data that you'll use with Bedrock in order to be able to improve and constrain and drive the focus of these models. Now, these models off the shelf are very, 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 very broad. They've been trained usually on the internet and lots of other information. They've got lots and lots and lots of information in a very, very broad way, but it doesn't exist at any sort of depth. And where most customers operate is actually at depth. And at depth, they're much more like Swiss cheese. They have areas of information density, and they have areas of information sparsity. And mistakes occur, or what they call hallucinations occur, when the model moves from an area of information density to an area of information sparsity, to a Swiss cheese gap. And that's because we trained the models to be able to regurgitate information. But if they don't have the context, if they're not grounded in the reality, if they're in a gap, then they'll just generate mistakes. And one of the big things that customers use Bedrock for, in addition to fast experimentation, is to be able to constrain the model in such a way that it doesn't move into the gaps by constraining the flight path or filling the gaps themselves. And so with Bedrock, we make available services which are fully managed to allow you to plug those gaps. So we have Bedrock Knowledge Bases, which is a fully managed retrieval augmented generation capability, or RAG. Many of you have heard of it, I'm sure. This allows you to be able to ground those models in the reality of your business at depth. It removes the vast majority, or makes those Swiss cheese holes much, much smaller, so the model doesn't wander into them. In a complementary capability, we also offer fine-tuning for models that support it. So our own Amazon Titan models, Llama models, Mistral open weights models, as well as upcoming support for Anthropic models. And this allows you to not just ground the data, but also to be able to guide the behavior of the models. So this will allow you to be able to change the style and the tone of the model, how it responds, what tools it interacts with, what systems it interacts with, and the way it interacts with them in both first and third-party systems. And most customers will start with retrieval augmentation to plug those gaps, and then very quickly start to progress to using fine-tuning to be able to provide guidance to the model on how to behave in certain situations. And in addition to all of that, we have guardrails. Guardrails allow you to put additional controls around the model, such as information that you don't want the model to see never gets close to the model. And if the model does accidentally venture off into a topic that you don't want to discuss, you can quickly shut down that discussion. And the guardrails on Bedrock are industry leading. They are the most accurate guardrails that are available anywhere. And this allows you to not only prototype quickly, not only provide the grounding and the behavior alignment, but also to be able to wrap all of that in a set of controls which meet your ethical and responsible requirements in an industry-leading way. No other generative AI service offers this breadth of capability and this breadth of models. So we're very excited to see how customers are making use of Bedrock to offer completely new experiences in their applications. And to help describe their work today, I'm very, very happy to welcome a customer, Chris Wide, the SVP of Engineering and Data from The Lonely Planet. Chris.
Why do we travel? Humans are on a voyage of discovery. And each time we travel, we leave tracks so others can follow and take the next step.
This is heaven.
For 50 years, Lonely Planet has laid a path. We've visited more than 21,000 destinations and printed more than 150 million guides. We've built a global network of diverse local voices, connected millions on our award-winning social networks, and forged lasting partnerships to elevate destinations and brands. A new era of Lonely Planet is beginning, one more committed than ever to real local voices.
These are the sounds of my city.
With decades of experience built into cutting-edge tools, an era focused on how you travel and why. So continue the journey with us. We'll see you out there. Lonely Planet. Adventures that move you since 1973.
Hello, LA. I love the energy. It's so exciting to be here with all of you to talk about Lonely Planet's technology transformation today, as well as our adoption of generative AI. When you've been around for 50 years, you touch a lot of lives. I'm sure many of you in this room have leveraged one of our iconic Lonely Planet travel guides to plan a trip. Just to give you an idea of the scale of content and data that we manage at Lonely Planet, we have produced more than 150 million guidebooks that cover 270,000 mappable destinations around the world. All of this is powered by more than 750 local experts. It's a lot of data. Since 1973, we have aimed to be every traveler's expert best friend, answering questions around where to go, what to do, and most importantly, how to do it. Looking to the future today, we are evolving our technology platforms on AWS to support the modern traveler, and we're already seeing a lot of benefits. After migrating 100% of our workloads to AWS, we've seen a 60% cost reduction in our cloud spend. Our site performance has improved by over 50%, and most recently, our generative AI workloads on Amazon Bedrock are 80% more cost-effective than they would be on other services or models in the market. Yes, 80% is a real number. All right, so how do we move forward? Well, the next big problem for us to solve is how do we take 50 years of expert advice and make that available to the modern traveler in digital formats? And that's really where we started to explore generative AI on Amazon Bedrock. Our AI is unlocking our data to enhance the traveler experience. I want to be very clear on a point here. We are not looking to replace our local expert voices. AI is meant to raise those voices up and basically get the information out to more people in different modes than just the guidebook. So, what did we build? We built a retrieval augmented generation pipeline on Amazon Bedrock that was able to scan all of our books. Over 20 trillion pages of content exists in an unstructured and unleveraged format. So we were able to scan that content using Anthropic and a number of AWS services and really start to test into some use cases. Some examples of those use cases on the screen are identifying, extracting, and enriching existing points of interest, identifying and surfacing new experiences from prior versions of guidebooks that had been lost to time, and also assembling itineraries. All of that then flows into our human-in-the-loop process where our editors review, edit, ensure quality before we would publish anything to our digital experiences. In addition, as part of this project, we tested multiple foundational models. We tested Jurassic, Llama 3, Titan, and ultimately landed on Anthropic's Claude family of models for this particular solution. Lastly, we had some very nuanced use cases within Lonely Planet that required specific outputs. We were able to essentially train our own custom embedding model on our data, leveraging Amazon SageMaker and Hugging Face, harnessing the power of the open source AI community. All of this was built in 7 months, really showcasing the power of these services that are made available to us today. Many of you are probably trying to solve similar problems for your customer and are asking, well, what did Lonely Planet learn? I'm gonna talk about 4 points, 4 learnings. First, prioritize a customer-centric approach. Every problem does not need to be solved with generative AI. Second, ensure the flexibility of your architecture. The pace of change in this space is insane, and you will absolutely, a competitive advantage will be flexibility and the ability to swap in and out pieces of technology as they come to market. Third, leverage AI, generative AI, not just to create new content or new data assets. Also, you can leverage it to unlock existing gold that you have in all of your organizations and the data that's currently unleveraged and make it a competitive advantage within your businesses, respectively. And last, but certainly not least, ensure that you're comparing multiple models and solutions as you're rolling this out within your business. This is by far, as I talk to counterparts from other companies, this is by far the #1 reason why POCs never make it into production. Teams anchor on a particular model before they've even finalized their use case, and it just doesn't work, whether that's economically or it doesn't work from a quality point of view. So if you take one thing away from this talk, make sure that you are testing multiple foundation models as you're working through implementing your various use cases. At Lonely Planet, we're excited to continue to inspire our customers worldwide to become explorers. We've been around for 50 years, and we may look a little different, but we're just getting started. My name is Chris Wide, and I'll see you out there. Thank you so much.
That was awesome. Lonely Planet are one of my favorite customers. I love them all, but the ones that are doing work like that I find so inspiring. So the fifth and final law that I think is not going to change, and a place to focus, is to be able to use generative AI to be able to turbocharge the transformation of your organization. As you start to look at any process inside an organization, you quickly find that this 70-30 split of useful work versus unuseful work becomes a bit of a truism. We saw it inside Amazon many, many years ago when we started to work with our own development teams. We saw that 70% of their time was spent on just the muck of trying to get access to servers and storage and images and all those sorts of things. And only 30% of their time was actually spent on the differentiating work of building tools, driving agility, or driving down cost. And it was this observation which led us to start to find ways to remove that undifferentiated heavy lifting for infrastructure. And it was that inspiration which led to AWS and all of you here. Thank you so much. But removing that undifferentiated heavy lifting from infrastructure has been so successful for companies in not just driving down costs, but in driving up their agility and in driving the innovative power of their own people to be able to invent and innovate on behalf of their customers and drive transformation in virtually every aspect of their business. It's been remarkable to see. And so it was very natural for us to ask, as generative AI started to become more and more mature, can we do the same for other parts of the business? Can we take this same 70% of muck where we find it and start to completely remove it and make the 30% of work make sense 100% of the time, turbocharging delivery, driving up innovation, and driving down costs. And it was this inspiration that led us to create Amazon Q, which is the most capable generative AI-powered assistant for software development and leveraging your internal data. Amazon Q is the easy button for generative AI. It allows you to start to take information from anywhere inside your organization and start to harness it, such as you can start to remove all of that muck, all of that undifferentiated heavy lifting associated with lots of different tasks inside your organization. It's been remarkable since we announced Q to see the reception. It's been remarkable to see the uptick since we made it generally available just a couple of weeks ago. One place where you will find this 70-30 split is true is in the software development lifecycle. If you talk to your developers, or if you're an engineer in the audience today, this will resonate that the software development lifecycle of planning, designing, implementing, testing, deploying, and maintaining software, this is a task that is 30% valuable and about 70% muck. And we want to be able to take Amazon Q and start to remove that muck, remove that undifferentiated heavy lifting, allowing customers to be able to move much more quickly and transform everywhere inside their organization. So we have a set of capabilities inside Q which is specifically designed to remove that 70%, providing the best-in-class coding assistant, providing advanced automation for both feature development and code transformation. So with Q, Q will recommend you code. That code is accepted more from Q than any other coding assistant. Code is secure, but that will drive a certain level of utility. The real value of generative AI is in driving automation for much more complex tasks. Tasks where you're not just providing a prompt and getting an output, but where you're providing an objective, and the AI is working with you to be able to deliver on that objective. And so Q contains a number of these developer agents. One which will allow you to very quickly to be able to develop features inside your software, and one which will perform transformation, modernization, and migration of your code, starting with migration from old versions of Java to new versions of Java. And this provides not just a 1.5 or 2x incremental speed up for your developers, but a 10 to 50x improvement in their productivity. It's a really remarkable capability, and it is unique to Q. And as you might expect, Q agents are king of the hill when it comes to performance. Q agents provide the highest scores on the benchmarks that customers care about when it comes to driving complex, automated tasks for coding and code improvements. So let's take a look at how this might work. So I mentioned earlier that there's a lot of regulated industries that are moving very, very quickly. This is probably the #1 use case that most regulated industries, and in fact, most other companies start with when they're starting to look at generative AI. It's a very simple document management app. And so customers in regulated industries, but everywhere else, they have absolutely huge volumes of private text data stored in documents. That might be market reports or clinical trial results. It might be the result of research and development. It might be reports on health records, whatever. It might be insurance documents. And what they want to be able to do is to be able to look inside all of that private text data and be able to understand it in a more deep way, to be able to summarize it, to be able to add value to it, and to be able to guide their own teams to be able to use that data in increasingly more complex ways, such as it makes it more valuable. It's already on the books. Generative AI is adding value to that data just by the nature that it is already on the books. And so one common way to do that is to build a very simple application like the one behind me. You take a document. In this case, we're looking at life sciences, research and development proposals. You pass it to some sort of portal. That portal logs some sort of information in a database, and then it goes and stores the rest of the document in a repository of some kind. And a very common task is to be able to say, we've got this repository. How do we help our teams find it? Can we add more summaries? Can we add metadata to the information that we've already got? And so you could do that by integration with Bedrock. It's very straightforward. Bedrock has a very simple API, has all of the models that you need, and you can call it with a very simple Lambda function. Just provide the Lambda function the information, it will call Bedrock, get the results, and you can pass it into the repository. So what better way than to use generative AI and apply generative AI to improve the assets that are already on your book than using a generative AI assistant? So let's take a look at how Q can help us do this. So the first thing we're going to do is Bedrock makes it extremely easy to add generative AI capabilities to any app using just a unified API. So let's start, and we'll use the Amazon Titan Text Express model because it provides a good balance between speed and efficiency. So to get started, you ask Q in the IDE. Q provides you with the step-by-step instructions on how to implement the Bedrock code, along with a brief explanation of what the code does. Now, Q makes this very easy to understand what each step does. You don't have to be an expert in Bedrock. You don't have to be an expert in generative AI. That's the whole point. And Q writes the majority of your work for you, such as you can call out to the Bedrock API, and you can see the code so you can get familiar with the API itself. So as you can see, it only takes a few lines of code to invoke any model in Bedrock. In fact, we may want to go ahead and experiment with a different model. This is an asynchronous task. It's running in the background. And so maybe we want to be able to take advantage of that fact. And instead of using a very, very fast model like Titan Text Express, we're willing to spend another couple hundred milliseconds per document to get a more complete and more full summarization. So maybe we want to change to Anthropic's Claude 3 Sonnet model. And this will do a better job at summarizing and tagging our documents, but takes a little bit more time. So you can use Q to ask, how do I call the Anthropic Claude 3 Sonnet model? Next, you can use QDeveloper to get Lambda handler code. So we've got our Python code here that's going to integrate with Bedrock. Now we're going to add all of the Lambda-specific code in order to be able to, Lambda knows how to run the application. So this will be triggered by the Java application. For this, you can just type in what you want using natural language, and QDeveloper comes back within a couple of seconds with a few code suggestions that help you quickly implement that Lambda handler. Very, very simple. And with the Lambda code complete, you can now update the Java portal. Now, it's possible this Java portal has been running for like 10 years. Nobody understands the code. Or maybe you've got a development team that is new to the code base. One of the really great things about Q is that you can chat and ask questions, not just generate the code. And Q will help you get up to speed on the code base in addition to helping you get your job done. So you need to get good at kind of exploring and understanding how the application works. And we can do that just by asking Q. Next, we can use Q to help write the code that calls Lambda and identify the areas in the existing application that needs to be updated. So Q is able to not only successfully produce the necessary code, but it also will find and identify the ideal locations to add that new code. It's very, very simple. I don't need to know everything about the code base in order to be able to get this going. Now, with all that code implemented, the next step is to log into the AWS console to test the Lambda function. Just make sure that everything is working as expected. And however, you can see that upon execution, the function failed. It looks like, really unusually, to be an IAM permissions problem. Instead of losing all the valuable time trying to figure out what caused the error, Q in the console can help us very quickly troubleshoot and resolve the problem. So in the console, we can just press the Troubleshoot with Q button, and within a few seconds, Q informs you that the problem is a missing permission. Furthermore, you can see that Q has to provide the resolution of the analysis steps, then you can quickly fix the problem. So from here, we've gone from something which would be pretty onerous task for any developer to be able to add generative AI to a code base that they don't fully understand and then get it deployed and tested into a system where Q has guided us through the process to be able to complete it very, very quickly and easily with the right human checks and balances in place while also educating us on the process itself. Now, with all the issues resolved and the code deployed into production, we can now look at the portal for more accurate, complete, and up-to-date information, and the research team will be very, very happy. Now, we could stop there. That took 70% less time, remember, than it would have done if we had to do it all manually. And what do you want to use that 70% for? Could be you want to go kite surfing, or we could add more features. You're all builders. Builders love to add features, so let's do that. So we could stop there, but with all the time that we've saved with Q, with all the data sitting on our repository, we have an opportunity to build an even better portal for our organization and our users. So to leverage our existing data, we can now configure Bedrock with a retrieval-augmented knowledge base that will allow us to be able to prompt the Bedrock API with additional context to ground it in the reality of our data. So Bedrock makes this extremely easy. You can add retrieval-augmented generation very quickly. All we need to do is to use Q's help to add and update the Lambda code to include the knowledge base when we call the Bedrock APIs. So we can invoke the model and retrieve the related information from the knowledge base all in one single combined call. This is grounding the prompt to the model, using information from our repository to be able to create better recommendations and better document finding and summaries for our assistants and for our researchers. And so just with a few additional lines of code, you are now able to quickly and efficiently find not just the documents, but also relevant related research. And Bedrock enables builders to build complex generative AI applications quickly, efficiently, and just as importantly, securely. So it's not just software development where we find this 70-30 split. We also find it internally, and when we talk to our customers, in customers trying to make better data-driven decisions democratized inside their organization. And using our guiding principle with Q to be able to drive transformation, we've baked Q directly into QuickSight. So QuickSight helps remove the heavy lifting for dashboarding and reporting tasks. It helps reduce the time it takes business analysts to be able to build dashboards and reports from hours to minutes by letting them build visualizations directly from just plain language. For example, you can ask Q for regional sales by product, and you'll get a Sankey diagram. You can also interact and ask questions of the data sources, interacting with documents and data sources very, very easily, as well as provide executive summary creation using the data that's available. It's very, very quick, very, very easy to be able to interact with the data that you already have available in your business intelligence systems using Q, and to be able to, as a result, make it much easier to understand and to apply to your various different business challenges. So this is a major boost in the speed at which your business analysts can answer business questions. And finally, there is an opportunity to boost the productivity for business users. So Q is a pretty powerful way of delivering quick, relevant answers to your business questions. It will connect to and understand the data from over 40 different popular sources, including S3 and Salesforce, Google Drive, Microsoft 365, and so on and so on. And what Q can do is use all of that data, inspect it, and be able to answer questions that you can't answer in any individual source. And to be able to do that whilst maintaining the access controls of each individual service. Such as, if you can't access it outside of Q, you can't access the data inside of Q. So let's take a look at what this looks like. So Q here can connect to my company's data and SaaS applications. It can look at Confluence for knowledge sharing, and maybe it's looking at Jira information for ticketing. And I can ask Q to summarize maybe what I missed about an upcoming event. Let's say this is a marketing team. The team are organizing an event, just like the one you're all attending today, some sort of festival. But I've been out on vacation, and I want to catch up. So I can just ask Q what's new about the planning for the event. Q will go off. It'll look at all the information from all the various different sources that it has access to, and it'll create a summary so that I can get up to speed very, very quickly. And in addition to that, we can dive in and we can look at the various different sources that have been provided that have provided that information. In this case, a set of Confluence meeting minutes. So it includes the relevant sources, such as you can verify the output, and you can go back to the original source materials. So one of the things you often want to do when you get back from vacation is to just check in on maybe a contentious issue. And maybe before we left, there was a contentious issue about the sponsor banner at the event. Ooh. So let's ask Q if there are any tasks related to the entrance banner of our event. So Q maintains the context of our conversation and provides the activity that we are looking for. And it looks like we have to create a banner with our sponsor's name and tagline. Now, this is a task that we have to complete. And not only can Q ingest data from various different sources, it can also talk to other sources as well. So here, quickly, easily, automatically, we can just ask Q to open a ticket inside Jira, and we can track that task that's been available, that's been identified for us. Very quick, very easy, very specific to the task that we've got in hand. Now, whilst this is a specific example of how you may want to leverage the data that you've already collected, it's also quite a general problem. It's pretty common that people want to check back in on the meeting minutes, want to be able to get a sense for how the project is progressing, want to be able to get a sense for what people have been discussing in other places, get themselves up to speed. And so what we can do is we can take this very specific use case of finding what's happened since we've been away and turn it into a Q app. Q apps are like tiny, tiny software. Personal software which is designed to complete very specific tasks and then generalize them such as they can be shared with your organization, your friends, your colleagues, your team, and so on and so forth. So Q apps will automatically identify the type of app that it thinks we want to build. We can review that. We can customize it. So we could say, well, build me an app to be able to take a date range as an input and it'll output a summary of the marketing meeting notes and action items. This is a very, very common task. Q will look at that, and it will be able to build a very, very simple app on your behalf. So there is literally an app for that, no matter what you're trying to do inside Q. Gone are the days where you had to search a catalog in order to be able to find an application which wasn't specific to your needs, that you had to either learn to use or customize. Today, it is easier to be able to build your own application from scratch, which is exactly what you need, than it is to be able to find one in a catalog and personalize it. And that's what we'll do with Q apps here. So Q will generate us an app. We can provide the start date and the away date, and we get a meeting summary just like that. And this is now a persistent URL that we can share inside our organization and also adheres to all the information and access controls inside the organization. So a very, very quick and easy way to be able to use Q to be able to drive automation and improvements in the long tail of tasks of which there is so much opportunity inside your organization. So Amazon Q has proven internally and with our customers to be a smash hit. It is a catalyst for transformation. We see massive productivity gains across over 3,000 employees. No longer rely on ad hoc dashboards by using Q inside QuickSight. accepting over 50% of the coding suggestions by the National Australia Bank. That is the highest value that we have seen for any coding assistant. Transforming research, design, and coding, 83% improved developer productivity, and the ability to be able to assess technical debt more efficiently and then to be able to upgrade services much, much more quickly. Q is a catalyst for the transformation inside your organization in using generative AI to be able to accelerate that transformation in ways that just haven't been possible up until now. So these are the best 5 immutable laws that I know right now. I encourage you to lean into them, find ways that you can apply them internally. I hope that these will be persistent at least over the next 12 months, maybe even longer than that. And for each one of these, the foundation of the AI being in the cloud, the ability to be able to broadly make generative AI available for experimentation, the ability to be able to find a model quickly and efficiently that meets your needs, the ability to be able to drive consistency and coherency into your applications, as well as use generative AI through Q to be able to drive transformation. This is only possible on AWS today. This is why we've built this very, very broad set of capabilities that work up the stack, from infrastructure required for training and inference, tools to build with foundation models and large language models, and the applications that leverage generative AI at the top of the stack. And most organizations will need capabilities at every layer of the stack, and those capabilities together are only available inside AWS. And so to learn a little bit more about how they've been applying generative AI across their organization, I'm very pleased to welcome up PGA Tour.
Thanks, Matt. My name is Ken Lovell, as Matt said. I've worked for the PGA Tour for about 24 years now, and because your AWS team will give you anything that they conceivably think you might want, they gave me this, whether you need it or not. Here's the fun irony of this. It's delicious. I don't actually play golf, which may be a scary admission and something I shouldn't say out loud, and I suspect many of you now have questions, like, are you out of your mind? Why are you doing this? How could you possibly not? But here's the thing. I work for the PGA Tour, and I do what I do because it is an opportunity to do something with information that is fun, that is interesting. We don't look at ourselves as a golf company or a sports league even. We consider ourselves to be a tech company that happens to do sports, that happens to do golf. And so really what we're trying to do is to figure out a way to take every piece of information that is happening on the golf course and find a way to get you to care about it, or find the thing that you do care about and put it in front of you in a way that you want to be. So how do we go about doing that, and what do we do? Let's start with what is it, okay? There are 3 big picture systems that are involved in what I do. My title is that I'm responsible for golf technology, which is fun and nebulous and can mean anything I want it to. I enjoy that. But really what that comes down to from a software stack perspective is 3 things. The first one is the one that is not sexy at all. That is our competitions, ranking, and stats system. This is the thing that decides who gets into an event and who gets paid. These are things that are pretty important, but not the stuff that you get really excited about. The second one is data distribution. If we can't put it in front of you, it just doesn't matter. So this is a whole other set of software that we're working through. But the third one is the one that everybody gets very, very excited about. And that is the cool, sexy stuff about how we get things off the golf course. Our job every week is to go and put down infrastructure to get across 250 acres or so all the information that happens on every shot at any given second. That involves a whole series of sensors and networks and all kinds of things like that, and our job is to take that and make it into something. About 20-some years ago, we decided to start doing that. And the way that we started doing that was we just started with some basic human inputs, and we had to figure out how to get that to you. The thing that's scary about that is that there was nothing that allowed us to move that in a reasonable way. So we started putting servers in trucks. I don't know how many of you have any experience with servers. Laugh. Because all of you do. But the bottom line is that servers don't like heat, servers don't like moving, servers don't like trucks, servers don't like that at all. That's not a thing that works very well. But we kept doing it because we didn't really have an alternative. About 3 years ago, we made the decision that we wanted more out of this. We had to find a way to get more information and get it off the golf course and do it quickly. And in order to do that, we made the conscious decision that we were going to think differently about what we were going to do. The place that we started going was thinking about how do you get more information in front of people and do it well, all right? How do you find the story that they want to tell? And that means you need more depth and you need more breadth. We need to go more places and we need to do it in a way that gets it out quickly. So we started with the basic assumption and we burned it all to the ground. We started from scratch. We rebuilt it completely. We started looking at cool new technologies, things you may have heard of since you're at this conference. I know this cloud thing seems to be taking shape. That gave us a lot of options, okay? Because we can now work remotely. We could use other ways of getting data out. We could have compute on demand. That's a fascinating concept when you have that much information coming off the golf course. But then how do you take that and make it into something that allowed us to get the right tools for the right job? So we're going to spend about an hour on this slide, so I buckle up. There's some Easter eggs in there. This is what we used to do and where it came from. But rather than, let's actually talk, this is where we came out, all right? We did this in a period of about 18 months and rebuilt this all from scratch. Now, what this meant was, and you can all read and you're familiar with this, the bottom line here is not that there is some cool single piece of tech that made this work. For us, the magic of this and the reason that we are doing this with AWS is not because we could take all the data and lift it and shift it into the cloud and the great hard drive in the sky would solve all of our problems. It was because there are a set of tools that would allow us to do the things we wanted to do when we wanted to do them in different and better ways. We could ingest mountains of radar, video, and laser data in ways that couldn't have been done before. We're taking now the ability to ingest this and do immediate analysis of it, allows us to really rethink how we can produce data and do it very, very quickly. And again, you've got a cocktail. One of my favorite things, I love this question. AWS is cute. They love to ask me, what's your favorite AWS tool? I don't know how to answer that question. For example, if I'm in my house and I want to butter my toast, I have two devices that will cut butter. There's a chainsaw in my garage and a knife in my kitchen. I'm not sure which one is good, but they're both useful for very different things. I like all the tools. We love all our children, and they're all very important. We use every one of these things to help us to get things better where they are. This is tech that's been ongoing and developing for a long time. It's not the cutting edge, but it is the stuff that has allowed us to get the data off the golf course. That's vital. Unless you start with data, you don't have a story to tell. But here's what we were able to do with this. What you're looking at is one of the results of that. We can now take and produce from roughly 120 cameras that are producing and taking a 2D sensor and putting into a three-dimensional coordinate plane from a map that we've produced, along with 36 military-grade radars and a host of other sensors, the ability to compute on demand and in real time the location of a ball. We can, within a second and a half before the ball lands, tell you what the zone of impact is going to be for that ball. Once that happens, within another second or so, we can tell you where the precise location of the ball is predicted to be, as well as where it's going to bounce and roll, using physics models and all of the other fun things, including the history of the golf course statistics, the history of that individual player, and how they played today. And then we can also add to that, and then we'll plot the actual point where the ball comes to rest when it's done. This is very, very useful for things that people like to do, because as it turns out, it seems people like to gamble. And this allows us to give people information so they can set odds for the next shot before that happens. We are literally foretelling the future. We can't do that without taking advantage of all of the compute on demand. We cannot do that without the ability to scale. And now people want us to do it more and more places. The models that we've built and the way that we've built it inside of AWS allows us to do that. So what that has done is it has given us the ability to create new and different and better experiences. The problem now is we pulled all that, and it's awesome. But now I want to be able to do something much more useful with it, okay? Stats that are faster are just stats. What else do we do? I need to tell you a story. I need to help you understand. I need to give you something that you care about. Sports is about watching people do things that are insane, hard, difficult, that are superhuman. How do I bring that to you and make you feel something about that? Everything that's about this lends itself to take that foundational data that we have now locked up and put it into these new platforms so that we can think more about them. And the reason that we like what we're doing with AWS is because we are using Bedrock in exactly the way that Matt just described. And we are taking those things and using not a model, but all the models. And we don't do AI because it's cool. We do AI because we need things from it, right? How do I find the next thing that you should care about, that you don't know you want to know before I told you it was there, about the player you didn't know you cared about before you knew who I told you about him, and I'm doing the thing that you didn't know was hard to do until I explained to you how hard it was to do. That's what this is for. Every single one of these becomes a useful tool. And all of that lends itself to what really matters. All the numbers, all the data, all the things that are there, they are useful because that guy is crying. I don't know why, but I'm going to find out because it's important. Why is that guy so excited? I mean, I don't know what's happening over here. And by the way, is he out of his freaking mind? Like, what is going on with that? Where was he in the golf tournament when that was going on? Like, did he care? What was happening? What was going on? We are using these to tell you the story. And the thing about this is we're building these things for the next set of stuff that we want to give you. What about, I want the ability to take an image and build it on the fly for every player, not one, but all of them. I didn't mention this, but when we're doing that kind of, that analysis and bringing you that data that fast, we are doing that for every golf ball on the golf course at the same time. That's 14 to 16 balls in the air at any given second. Like, which one matters to you? I don't know, I'm going to find it. I'm going to find the one you care about. We're using all the models that are out there so that we can create better images. What about an automated broadcast? What about commentary that's unique to the language you care about, or just the players that you want to know about? What is the thing that I can bring you that will make this make sense to you and matter to you? Because when it comes down to it, all this is cool. But the bottom line is that it matters that I can bring you the experience. Because I want you to feel what these people are feeling. Love him or hate him. Love him or hate him. That man is doing something incredibly difficult, and he did it in a way that made those people come out of their chairs. They walked across the golf course to a place they weren't supposed to be a part of a moment that was huge. I'm going to find that data, and I'm going to find the thing you care about, and I am going to make you cry. Thank you.
Fantastic. It is so inspiring to be able to see data and AI driven into the very heart of so many sports. Thank you. So, with all of this invention across all of these different customers, all this technology, it's pretty remarkable to imagine that we are only at the very beginning of this technical shift, that we haven't yet hit that hockey stick inflection point. And I wanted to just close out the session with a bit of a forward look around some of the technologies that we're investing in at AWS that I think will help drive us up this capability and performance curve over the next 12 to 24 months. Starting with agents. There is no hotter topic in generative AI today than agents. We talked a little bit about they can help with how agents help with Q, how Q has the best performing agents for developer productivity. But they are a very general technology. The ability to be able to set an objective to the model, to be able to have the model understand that objective, create a plan, start to execute against that plan, assess how it's doing against that execution, find additional information, ask humans for clarifying points, replan and check as necessary, and ultimately drive to an output. This approach allows us to build much higher levels of automation using generative AI beyond just taking a prompt and delivering an answer. It allows us to complete tasks in the order of 5 to 10 minutes today, but probably in the order of 50 to 500 minutes over the next 12 months. So really remarkable capability. You can use agents inside Bedrock today. We have excellent agent support. We're seeing customers start to use it already. There is a bit of a shopping list, I think, that will take us forward over the next 12 months, looking at longer planning horizons, being able to increase the diversity of the subtasks that these models are able to provide, more sophisticated end-to-end tasks as well as tool use, the greater number of modalities that we can support in understanding and executing the tasks. And I think if we're able to deliver on all of that, we will see a remarkable proliferation of the data sources and system integrations that we're able to deliver through agentic systems. It's a very exciting time. In fact, only this week, a new startup launched called Ninja Tech AI that is building agents today on AWS with 70 billion parameter models using our custom silicon, and have been able to do that at a much lower cost than they would otherwise without our own custom silicon. So it's a really remarkable story. Next, we're investing in a set of scientific objectives. These are not product outcomes. These are more focused on what can we do to invest in the fundamental science in order to be able to solve some of the hardest problems related to generative AI. And one area that we're investing in and have already published on is around hallucination detection and remediation. We've got a couple of papers here and a QR code, which you are welcome to scan and read at your leisure. You can load it onto your Kindle and read to whenever you're ready. What we're doing is investing in a set of tools and data which allows us to be able to inspect the inner workings of the neural network, to be able to try and identify if the neural network knows whether it has made an error, whether it is hallucinating, whether the results are low accuracy, along with driving not just text hallucination detection and remediation, but also multimodal hallucination control using visual information grounding. So these two papers are well worth taking a quick look at. I also think one of the elements that's going to drive us forward is, as much as we love the trusty transformer architecture that a lot of these large language models are based on today, I suspect that will become one of many different alternative model architectures. There are some that are showing some real promise, like solid-state architectures and refactive architectures. And I think in tandem and in complementary situations, combining these different architectures in different ways is going to allow us to move up that capability curve much more quickly than with large language models alone. And finally, all the technology in the world will not matter a jot if your organizations are not ready to be able to apply, understand, evaluate, and deploy this remarkable technology. And so in addition to all the technical pieces that I've covered, we're also investing in helping our customers get ready for this transformation using generative AI. So we have an Amazon AI Ready initiative, which provides free digital courses for generative AI and allows for much faster upskilling. We also allow customers to be able to get hands-on with a system that we call PartyRock, which is an Amazon Bedrock playground. It allows you to start to experiment and build the type of apps that I showed earlier with Q. You can build those inside a web experience outside of Q and start to experiment, get a sense of how all these things work together. This has proven to be, internally at Amazon, one of the most viral use cases and positive surprises that we have seen that have helped all of us, including myself, get up to speed with generative AI. And then we also have available a set of applied scientists that we call the AWS Generative AI Innovation Center, which are available to customers to help them with prototyping, help them with brainstorming, help them get hands-on keyboards and actually start to deliver production applications using generative AI. And I have not found a customer that this team have not been capable of delighting. They are a remarkable resource, and I'm happy to make them available to all of you here today. So you don't have to go it alone. In addition to the technology, organizational readiness is a key element of investment for us and for all of you here today. And so with that, I'd like to thank you very much for your attention. Thank you for joining us here today, and I hope that you prompt happy. Thank you.